So welcome and thank you for joining us. We're here today with Robb Myer, President and Chief Product Officer at NoWait, a really cool waitlist and seating tool app for the iPhone and iPad. So thank you. And before we dive in too deep, what is wrong with the old-fashioned buzzer, Rob? What's the problem that you're solving?
Oh, well, the buzzers went the way of Miss Pac-Man, I think, back in the 80s. The problem with the buzzers is you don't know what's going on at that restaurant before you leave. Sorry about that. Somebody's here. The problem with the buzzers is you don't know what's going on at the restaurant before you get there. And once you get the buzzer, you're kind of tethered to that restaurant. You can't really wait where you want, and you're stuck there.
And something really cool about NoWait too for consumers is brands can send you different appetizer specials and drink specials while you're waiting to keep you interested.
Yeah, some of our restaurants use that initial text message to do menus, to do specials, to do anything to really engage their guests a little bit better.
Great. So Rob, NoWait sounds operationally pretty perfect. What was it like initially pitching this to restaurants?
Restaurants had such a need for what we were doing, they naturally gravitated towards it. When we go to a restaurant, and actually now, most restaurants actually come to us. We don't really do a lot of outbound stuff. They find us online, they download our app for free, and they get up and running within a few minutes because they have such a pain point, they have such a need to manage this very difficult problem for them. They just understand it immediately.
Have you ever ran into any roadblocks with getting them to adopt it with any Pac-Man restaurants, perhaps?
Well, restaurants are traditionally, as a whole, a little bit slow to adopt technology, and we're certainly seeing that change just across the board with, online ordering, with table ordering, with a lot of different loyalty programs that are coming into the restaurants. So they're changing, but there's definitely a curve of restaurants, and we attract the busiest, most popular restaurants that have the biggest problems, and they want a solution to give their guests a better experience.
All right, and you guys are especially helpful though because you're giving people greater control of information. And being a product manager officer, I know that information and analytics are very, very vital to you. So I'm just curious, what has been one of the most interesting things you've learned about customers when they get their data in real time?
What's really interesting is before NoWait, they really had no visibility into their guest experience before that guest sat down. So they could run reports on their POS, their point of sale system for sales and everything. But if you asked a restaurant, well, how many people do you lose on a busy night because of your wait? They absolutely have no idea. So giving them that information that we do, how many people walk in, how many people get seated, how many people get removed, how many people don't even put their name on the list, that's an aha moment for our restaurants.
And it's perfect because if someone does ditch, then it just notifies the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why these restaurants have all chosen to be kind of anti-reservation, because if you make a reservation for someone and they don't show up, that table just literally sits empty for that period. But within all walk-in restaurants, if a person doesn't, show up in 5 minutes, you just go on to the next person on the list. It's a lot more efficient. In addition to that, we show restaurants just what their throughput is and what their efficiency on an ongoing basis. And we can actually show them as they get more attuned to the NoWait system, they get better at using it. And they'll just actually increase usually 10, 15% their overall guests that they seat per night.
Geez, I'm sure anyone would want that, huh?
Well, guests equal revenue, so yeah, you're exactly right.
So on the subject then of product management, I know it takes a special type of person to be a programmer or a designer. So describe the type of person you have to be to thrive as a product manager.
Yeah, that's a great question. A product manager needs to have empathy and a desire to have empathy with their customers, their users, whoever they're designing their product for. So, for example, I didn't have much of a background. I didn't have any background in restaurants besides being a consumer at a restaurant. So when I wanted to develop a solution for a restaurant, I first went in and I didn't say, hey, here's what I want to build for you. I said, tell me what it's like to run a restaurant. What are your pain points? What are your bottlenecks? And that's when I discovered there was actually a very economic need for the restaurant to manage their seating process more efficiently. And that matched up, thankfully, pretty well for my consumer need to have a better experience at the restaurant. So to be a great product manager, you really have to get in there, understand your customers, and be able to then translate that into the people that ultimately build whatever service you're creating, whether that's software or a process or an overall experience.
So NoWait, Rob, is really all about efficiency. As a product manager, what have you learned is the best way to release a product?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we've done at NoWait, what I've done in my previous jobs, is get to know the customers, design it, but then go out and release it kind of on a beta release or a trial method. So we're here in Pittsburgh, which is a small, medium-sized city, and we work with about a dozen different restaurants here very closely, kind of as our customer advisory or beta testing board. So whenever we do new features, we roll it out to them first. We watch how they use it. We get their feedback, and we see how it affects them. And then we can use that information to iterate on the product before we release it nationally. So that's how we've done it, and that's turned out to be pretty successful.
In relation to customer feedback as well, I know you guys work with restaurants directly and you also work with consumers. So let's say I'm a consumer and I say, hey Rob, I'd really like if you added this to the app. But the restaurants aren't into that. How do you evaluate that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we're managing kind of the interface, right, between the restaurants and the customers. Restaurants would just assume that the restaurants stayed in a straight line, and as soon as they wanted to seat someone, they were right there. Customers would just assume they could show up at the restaurant anytime and get a table. So we're trying to bring those two together. And we have to be very careful that we don't implement features for our consumers that conflict and mess up the overall operation for the restaurant. So it's a healthy tension between the two, but ultimately restaurants want to give a good experience to their guests, and ultimately guests want to go to these very popular restaurants. So we've been able to kind of manage that and balance it, and really take kind of our knowledge, bridging the gap, to develop some very interesting technical solutions that even just a few years ago, before the explosion of mobile and stuff, would just not have been possible.
So then let's go back in time. What do you wish you would have known before you first launched your app in the iOS App Store?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. Well, we certainly learned a lot about. We actually started developing before the iPad itself came out. So we launched our first beta on the iPod itself. And we learned that it just didn't have the screen real estate. We pivoted to the iPad, which has been great. So we've learned a lot of things about the iTunes Store and that whole process along the way.
Now, what system is your team using for project management? Is that what's behind you right now, or?
Yeah, it's a whiteboard. We have a nice size 11-person engineering and product team, and we use simple tools like Google Docs actually to manage a backlog. And when we actually get into our development, we use tools like GitHub and Scrum-wise to actually kind of manage the development process. But it's not so much about the tools. Tools can help with efficiency, communication, and stuff. But it's really about the ideas and the communication of the ideas. And the way that I try to manage the team is helping the engineers and the people that actually build the products just really understand and internalize the problems that we're trying to solve, and really the problems that the restaurants or guests have that they want to solve. And my job is really to understand that thoroughly and communicate that so they can do the best job kind of designing and building to solve those problems.
So as a chief product officer then, Rob, and really taking on that leadership role, what do you find is the best way to impart that content to your team? Because I think if every time you hear something you tell them, it gets confusing. How do you get the message across efficiently?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's not a, ad hoc shotgun kind of method, oh, somebody told me this one thing or change this button. We do have, a more systematic, approach to that. We use an agile Scrum kind of framework for development. So it's kind of a beginning time where we review some of the next features. So it's, there's a time to define and estimate, then there's a time to build, then there's a time to release, and then that process iterates over again. So it just kind of goes in cycles. We get the feedback. I kind of hold all the feedback, and my job is to hold it and prioritize it and wait until the cycle to start over again starts. So the engineers can really focus on we're going to define something, we're going to do that, and then we're going to go do the next thing.
Great. So you've shared that the possibilities for NoWait are really endless. So ranging from hair salons to doctor's offices. Once you tackle the restaurant industry, Rob, what's next?
Yeah, NoWait is really a platform for ending waiting in the U.S. and ultimately worldwide. Our vision is to tackle all these other industries, like you said, and be a household name for any place that you anticipate. Oh, I hate to go there. There's always such a long line. Hey, let me look that up on NoWait and put my name on the queue ahead of time. So, we're not really talking about what our next industry is. There's a lot of different possibilities out there. We really want to focus on the casual dining space because that alone is hundreds of thousands of locations. But think of NoWait as a platform to end waiting as you know it in the next couple of years.
Well, hey, I am definitely looking forward to not waiting for the bench press anymore.
Well, that is very specific.
So now, where can our users find you?
You can find us for free on the app stores for iPhone and Android, searching on NoWait. And if you search for findnowait.com, you can find us on the web.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, guys.